Your host for today's show is B. Alan Bourgeois.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Texas Authors TV show. We today have with us a gentleman by the name of Aaron H Aceves. Hopefully I said that right. Welcome, Aaron. How are you?
I'm good. It's a Cevis, but it was pretty close.
Seventh. Okay. I'm horrible with names and I do apologize for that.
And you're fine.
Um, so Aaron, let's start with who are you and how did you get into writing?
So I'm the author of the young adult novel This Is Why They Hate Us, which is a YA contemporary. I started writing when I was very young. I was obsessed with reading, and I think the natural next step was to start trying to write my own book. And so I did that when I was 9 years old, and then gave up on it when I was 10. Found my way back to it in college, where I wrote my first ever young adult novel that was very bad. And then once I graduated, I wrote a second, I wrote a third, and then This Is Why They Hate Us is kind of my fourth book. And it's the one I that got me my agent, that got me a book deal, and has sort of, been out for 2.5 years now.
Now, you have a background in writing as a professor, if I'm correct. Tell me how you got into that.
Yeah, so when I was in college, I was a psychology major. I was also pre-med, and then that very quickly fell away, but I was still a psych major. And so I didn't get to take a lot of writing classes. And so that's why I decided to get my MFA. And so, did my MFA for 2 years, part of which was during COVID times in New York, which was, hugely unpleasant. But I had my book deal at that time. And so I was during the pandemic, just editing This Is Why They Hate Us, and then applying for jobs. And, I wanted to stay in New York, but my only option, and a really great option, was this fellowship at UT, and it's called the Early Career Provost Fellowship. And it's a really great program. I was, one of two people in English, but there were people in other areas of the college. And yeah, I teach one class in the semester. The first time it was a standard short story workshop. And then every time after that, I made a sort of hybrid seminar workshop class where we, talked about a certain topic. And so the first one was, understandably young adult fiction. And then I had a class about writing young protagonists, but for any age. So including like middle grade YA and literary fiction that just features a young protagonist. And then most recently, I'm doing from short story to novel. So we're focusing on writing short stories that function as standalones, but could be sort of mined and extrapolated into a novel.
Okay. The fact that you have written four, if I remember correctly, four different books, and only one has gotten published, what was the challenge you experienced with that?
Well, the first book, like I said, was very bad. But I started when I was 18. I finished when I was 21, and it just wasn't me. Um, it, the protagonist was straight and was sort of posturing the entire time, and it was really like inauthentic, and uh, it also drew so heavily from autobiography. It was very long, and it was, not that exciting. And so I really understand why I didn't get an agent for that, and I would never want to publish that book. But then book two, I wrote sort of similar to House on Mango Street, where you have these sort of very short vignettes, and it covers 4 years of high school, which is kind of outrageous. And agents like the writing, they like the characters, but they didn't like uh, the format. And I really love the structure. That's how I wanted to tell the story. And so they sort of asked me to change it, and I said no. And then I had written this third book, and that one was straight technically because it was the main character was a girl. Um, so I kind of yeah, it was like a technicality where I get to thirst over boys in it. But that one I think also probably just felt inauthentic. I remember an agent saying it lacked heart, which I don't agree with still, because I do think I know that character, and there was a heart in the book, and it was her little sister. But yeah, I think like This Is Why They Hate Us was just sort of everything I had been wanting to say for a very long time in an unfiltered way through a teenager. And so it just sort of hit differently than any of the other books.
The fact that you've worked or trying to work with agents and stuff with your other books, do you find that that process is more challenging because they're looking for something specific or because of what you've written?
I think, agents are so busy and they have so many clients. Like they genuinely have to like be obsessed with what you write. And so I think the problem is like, or it wasn't necessarily a problem, but they just didn't love my books to that degree, for the ones that didn't get agents. Um, and it's personal taste. And I think, I do want to go back to two of those books that I talked about, not the first one, but the other two, I sort of would like to take a crack at it again, in the future. I just have other things that I want to draft before that, like, put out that's new before I go back to old stuff. But yeah, I think it's just personal taste and sort of, the experimental nature of one book and then the sort of emotional inauthenticity of the other two.
You mentioned that you've written the other ones and you didn't necessarily agree with the agents. For example, one, your second to the last one didn't have heart. This cat wants to say hello. Say hello.
Oh,
Um,
Echo.
when you dealt with the agent, and like I said, they felt it didn't have the heart. Did you want to go to a different agent, or were you satisfied with the fact that, okay, that was just their opinion, you want to just leave it alone and just moved on to the next one?
So the first book I queried around 50 agents and I gave up because I just knew it wasn't going to happen. Like I just felt like I had tried, and to go to any other agents like that I didn't truly want, like that would have been like not what I want to do. With the second book, I only queried around 16 agents, and I also knew that it was going to be the same critique every time, that they were going to say we don't like the structure, we want a different structure, and I wasn't willing to do that, and so I just stopped querying that after 16 agents. With the other book, the one that starred a girl character, that one I sent to a lot of agents, to around 60. And again, it was that feeling of I've exhausted my list of people that I would want to work with, and so I'm done querying this book. And so with This Is Why They Hate Us, um, that one was just the one where someone finally was like, I want to work with you. And the thing is, like, it wasn't an offer outright. It was an offer of revise and resubmit. And so I revised the book, resubmitted it to this agent, and then they offered. And then I told all the other agents, and then I got offers from them. So it's just like it was a lot of different agents and a lot of different tastes, and none of them wanted the other books. And so I sort of just had to move on.
Yeah. We only have a couple minutes left of this segment. Do you, considering all the frustration you had work trying to find agents to do the different books and stuff, do you still feel that's more important versus maybe doing self-publishing?
I have considered self-publishing a lot because I've been trying to traditionally publish a second book for a while, both in YA and in adult, and it's been slow going. We've gotten like very close to selling books, and then it sort of falls through at the last minute. And so I've been considering self-publishing, but it's just, the upfront costs kind of keep me away. All the work that I would have to put in myself, keeps it sort of makes it a dream in my mind, but not something that I'm looking to in reality. Because I just, I know how hard indie authors work, and it's it's daunting to me.
I can understand. We are at that point. We're going to take a break for our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Introducing the Texas Authors Magazine. Discover our author spotlights, writing strategies, market insights, and news from our vibrant Texas literary scene. Starting with our July 2025 issue, as you see here, our exclusive Author Spotlight series brings Texas voices front and center. Grow your reach, connect with peers, and celebrate Texas storytelling. Get your free copy or join today at texasauthorsmuseum.com.
Hi, and welcome back. This is your host, Aaron Bourgeois, and you are listening or watching to the Texas Authors TV podcast. And we appreciate you being here. I have Aaron with us. We've been talking in the first segment about his experience of getting that book, his first book published. He's written several of them. So let's talk about This Is Why They Hate Us. It's a YA book. So let's just dive in. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so This Is Why They Hate Us is the story of 17-year-old Enrique Luna, who has a crush on his best friend Celine, and in order to try and get over that crush, he tries to get under someone else over the course of a summer. It's sort of a raunchy teen comedy, but with heart. And it features, a lot of things that I was dealing with when I wrote it. I was 24 writing a 17-year-old, but I felt like I was sort of having a coming of age. And so I wanted to put it in the body of someone who is a lot younger. And especially because I knew it was going to be released for Gen Z. And, after that, Gen Alpha, like I sort of, I knew they were more advanced in a lot of ways, more so than like me and my, like my fellow students at that age. And so, he has a lot more excitement in his life than I did at 17.
And was that excitement on purpose or just because you're pulling from the Gen Z?
Um, it was on purpose. Like I really like I grew up loving high school movies. Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, Clueless, Mean Girls, Superbad. Like from all these generations, I just loved high school stories, and I wanted to write my version of that in book form, and with a lead who was bisexual and Mexican like myself.
Okay. Taking this, being the fact of bisexual, as you stated, are you pushing him more into one typical style, heterosexual relationship, or more into gay, or are you just hoping for a mix of everything?
So when I began writing the story, I knew he was in love with his male best friend. I knew that he had a female best friend and that they had formerly hooked up, but they like were just friends at that point. So I knew those two things. And then the whole premise is like he's trying to replace his male best friend because he doesn't want to ruin their friendship. And so he goes for boys to replace him. Like he doesn't really consider girls an option to replace his infatuation with his best friend, his male best friend. And so I thought about it throughout the process. I was like, he's like pursuing three different boys to try and get over another boy. Like, am I confirming that bi stereotype that bi men are actually just gay? And I sort of thought about it, and it's literally like it's tackled in the text. Like there are discussions about it. There are conversations that Kike has trying to explain, like, hey, like I like all genders, but I'm particularly like obsessed with boys right now because I was told I can't have them. So he's kind of like he's going through this, reckoning with like I like them. The world doesn't want me to. This is why they hate us. Like, but I'm going to do it anyway because I need to figure this out. Like I need to explore this part of myself.
Interesting, the aspect of the forbidden fruit
Yeah.
concept. You've you definitely have written it and it's published, it's out there. Are you hoping to follow up with this particular one or just go into another book altogether, another story?
Yeah, there's no plan for a sequel. Even if I mean the first hurdle would be publishing wanting that, and I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's sold well enough to sort of merit a sequel because sequels always sell less than the previous one. But even if that were the case, like if I did have editor interest for that, I don't think I would do it. I think I told the story. I think that's Enrique's story. I think it's sort of complete in its incompleteness because he's 17. And so I really don't see a sequel. I did I have a YA a proposal for the second YA novel, and that is with an editor. And that book is totally different. I mean, it's way less raunch. It's more true to my actual high school experience where, no one even like kisses, and it's about high school journalism, which is why it's been a hard sell. But yeah, that one is yeah, none of the same characters. I think there might be like a setting in common, like a burger place that, all the teens go to. I think that's in both books, but other than that, they're pretty, yeah, like not at all the same.
Other than the main character, did any other characters in that book, Why They Hate Us, kind of stand out for you, almost wanting to be a different book on its own?
The funny thing is like before the book came out, I thought people would love Fabiola, who's the female best friend. She's this kind of like cantankerous, just like fun girl. And reminiscent of some friends I've had. And I thought everyone was gonna like really love her and be like, where's her sequel? Like, where's her spinoff? But that wasn't the case because I love her. But people really love a character called Manny. And I do too. Like I love Manny, and he is very special to me because he's representative of a certain person that I went to high school with. This kind of you know, Chicano, like, not a cholo, but, his brother's a cholo, his cousins are cholos. He's around this and he's Mexican American and he has this kind of coolness to him. And like, he's very particular to where I grew up. And so to represent him was like really great. And he's also just like funny and I think unexpected in the book. Like, he sort of a wild card. So people really love Manny. They do ask me for the Manny spinoff, and I'm like, I won't give that to you, but I understand why, because I like him too.
Now, wait a minute. You've got people wanting a Manny spinoff, but you don't want to write it. Why?
I feel like, you know, I don't, I want, it's when people are like, oh, I want more of this good thing. And then sometimes when you give it to them, they're like, oh, no, I didn't want that much. Like if you want a second ice cream cone and then halfway through you're like, oh, no, I should have just stuck with the one ice cream cone and like been left wanting a little more.
I can understand that. We have just a couple minutes left of the segment here. Um, for your particular book, what was the main message that you really wanted people to get from reading it?
It was, as trite as it may sound, it was just about self-love. But well, it was about self-love and then the knowledge that people are worthy of other types of love. You're worthy of self-love, you're worthy of your platonic friend's love, you're worthy of romantic love and attention, you're worthy of your paternal, yeah, your parental, familial, like all these types of love that exist in the world. Like, I wanted a teen to read through it and be like, I deserve that. And even if I didn't get any, like if I didn't get one of those or any of those, like I still was deserving of it. It just, was how life worked out.
I'm going to put you on the spot here because of the current politics that are going on. You live in Texas, which has created a new law that hasn't officially passed yet, but where more book bans can happen on the local level. As someone who's written for that community, how do you feel about that type of stuff?
There was a library not in Texas. I think it was in West Virginia called Samuel's Library. And the first time I ever heard my book being challenged was at this library. And I got a DM from someone who worked against the bans at this library and was like, hey, like, can you send us copies of your book? Like, we're gonna go sit in a city council meeting and we want to read it like as an act of protest during blah blah blah. And I thought it was a scam. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, no one's putting that much effort into a scam where you get three books, like three free books, and like, what are you going to do with that? So, I ended up looking it up, and then I found this website, and it was the people who wanted to ban my book, and it's called, I think, Clean Up Samuels or something. And I went on, and they had a filled out request for reconsideration form, which is, the form you submit so that you can ban a book and get it off the shelf at the library. And I read this form, and this very angry man who I found out, I think, that doesn't even have kids. Like he filled out this form and he was very obviously like angry about its existence and its representation and everything in it. And there was this moment, and I'm reading through it, and then there's this moment where it says like, can you point to parts of the book that are inappropriate? And he had 10 pages typed of like excerpts from my book that were inappropriate. And like by inappropriate, I kind of get that it's raunchy, that it's, sort of a lot of dick jokes. And they're teenagers and they're talking about sex and they're talking about a lot of things. And just reading 10 pages of all that without context, even without like the joking context, like it really made me think. It was like, am I a weirdo? Like, am I like, what is wrong with me that I'm writing this? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I kept thinking about it. I was like, oh, like maybe they're right. Like maybe this book like shouldn't be for kids. And somehow it just like got through all these like processes where it reached kids. And then I started thinking about it and I was like, well, I was like, I watch movies like Super Bad, where like the whole point is like these two straight boys like trying to have sex with girls and talking about them in this certain way. And there's American Pie, and like there isn't really that outrage. I think people are scared of books more than movies because it's sort of more intimate and like secretive. Like if you're watching a movie, it's sort of endorsed because everyone is watching it. Or if it's straight, obviously it's more endorsed. But I think yeah, they were just I sort of brought myself out of that. But for a moment I was just like very sort of disgusted with myself.
Interesting. Unfortunately, we're going to have to stop there and let our sponsors do their thing. We'll be right back.
Who will win the 2026 Best of Texas Books Awards? Texas Authors Museum 15th Annual Book Contest, now open. Celebrating books published between December 15, 2024 and December 1st, 2025, in every genre. Submit your cover and PDF via email to texasauthors@outlook.com. We will invoice you for the $50 entry fee. Learn more at texasauthors.museum.com.
America has 250 years of stories, but the next chapter, that's yours to write.
Introducing Voices of America. Your voice, your story. What does America mean to you?
Submit your story. Shape the next 250 years. Enter now at AmericanShortStories.org.
Back to the Texas Authors Podcast with B. Alan Bourgeois as your host. And welcome back. This is your host, B. Alan Bourgeois, and you are listening or watching Texas Authors TV. We have Aaron. We've been talking about his book, This Is Why They Hate Us, and his little aspect of having to deal with book banning. Before we go too far into that, I would like for you to take a moment and let people know how they can find your book, how they can reach out to you to learn more about the books or other things that you have going on, your social media and stuff like that. So if you'd be kind enough to share that.
Yeah, I think the easiest place to find all my centralized social media and everything is my website. It's aaronaceves.com. So AARON, the letter H, ACEVES.com.
Okay. And they can reach out to you for more information and stuff like that. Considering the book banning that you have dealt with and getting past that and stuff, and you're working on, as you mentioned, you have one editor. What stories do you feel are important to share at this time?
I've been thinking about this a lot lately because in YA, when you think about blockbuster titles, a lot of them are speculative. A lot of them are fantastical. And I love that for kids of color. I love that for queer kids. But I just have such a special place in my heart for contemporary fiction, for the day-to-day life of an ordinary teenager. And it's just really, I'm trying really hard to just keep doing contemporary, to keep, doing slice of life stories about kids that I didn't see in movies or TV shows or books growing up, kids like me. Um, and so I think that like and I also when other authors write their contemporaries when about like again, like these sort of banal problems that teenagers have, or these situations that feel to them like life and death, but looking back aren't as serious. Um, I think that's really important to me, and I think it's really important to kids to see the realism. Um, Nothing against, werewolves or vampires or whatever, but yeah, I just love contemporary fiction, and especially for teenagers.
Okay. Out of curiosity, because you have the YA, have you thought of writing any children's books that address some issues, prior to them becoming teenagers?
I have an idea for a middle grade novel. But I know how hard middle grade is to write. My favorites, like I think about how complex they are sometimes. Like Wrinkle in Time, Holes, like these sort of classic now children's novels or middle grade novels, and there's just a sort of magical quality to them, and I'm really scared of screwing that up and not being able to have the right voice, because I want it to come off as like a timeless kind of children's classic where third person and this kind of whimsy to it, and I just like don't feel I have the idea, but I'm just letting it sort of sit there, and I'm waiting to see if one day I just sort of start writing it and see if I can tap into the voice that I want.
Now, considering you've taken the YA aspects, are you in the back of your mind possibly going to write an adult book or anything of possibly these kids that have come from that period of time, the YA, and now they're adults and how they're dealing with things?
So I've been writing literary short stories for adults since junior year of college, when I finished my first YA book. So they sort of been in tandem with each other. It's just that no one reads my short fiction. It is on my website, aaronhaceves.com. But like I love writing short fiction. And typically I have some YA short stories, but typically they're adult literary fiction. And I love that genre. I love writing in it, and I've been doing that again for a very long time now. And I've published some stuff, and I want to keep publishing in journals and magazines. I think I have a piece coming out in the Iowa Review later this year, and that's actually an excerpt from a novel, which was my thesis submission in grad school. That's an unfinished novel. But then I also have a completed short story collection, an adult romance novel, and then an adult upmarket novel. The upmarket novel is about a young adult author, and that one has been with editors for around 9 months. We've gotten a ton of very glowing rejections, and I'm just sort of waiting, hoping that someone will pick it up. But we haven't really gotten lucky yet.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for your time. We are at the end of our show, unfortunately, and I know there's plenty more to discuss, but we do appreciate you being here. We wish you the best of luck. Take care.